Okay, so hi everyone. If everybody can hear me, raise your hand or at least nod so I know my sound is okay. For the investors, before they type out, I promise it's going to be interesting for you as well. And so let's just get right to it. I always tell companies you don't necessarily have to work with me, but I highly recommend you go after R&D funding, and that's because the budget for 2021 is going to be $140 billion and 30 is going to be for private industries. A little known fact about non-dilutive funding and R&D funding: there's no equity sharing, there's no interference, and this is for investors who are in the business here. Also important for you to know, the government doesn't have rights over the IP, and there might be follow-on contracts. If there's anything we've also seen with COVID, is the R&D budget that gets assigned to companies still lasts even during economic crisis. What we saw, and this is something that keeps coming on and on, not from us, but also CFOs and people that later on do follow-on funding, is they see that investors are very interested in companies that already got dual use, or they got funded by the government because they've been vetted by an additional agency. Another cool stat that came out from the Department of Energy is that companies that had a funding mechanism that was awarded called Small Business Innovation Research, SBIR, were able to double their chances of getting follow-on private sector funding. I've heard some companies here saying that they're looking for stratfi and tacfi financing. This is something that aligns. Another thing, you'll hear me say this a lot, you don't have to work with me, but you can't rule yourself out from the R&D process without taking a serious look. And you'll see Department of Energy and DARPA and DOD and the Department of Transportation, essentially every major federal agency has an R&D budget that they're looking to finance between defense and cyber and energy and materials and additional topics. So companies here that are interested in doing R&D funding, scaling the next stage, feel free to reach out to me. I'm at yoav@eaglepointfunding.com, and we can see if it's relevant for you. I heard NanoRamics saying here that they started with R&D funding, and you'll see here in government funding, you'll see here that 23andMe and Symantec and Qualcomm are all companies and technologies that were able to start off the ground with R&D non-dilutive funding. So why is the government doing it outside warm milk cookies and good faith? It's because it is solving agency problems. There's a great story that's happening within the Department of the DOD. It took them 10 years and $7 million to create a helmet. By the time it reached productions, it was no longer relevant. Technologically, it didn't make sense to use it. So they outsourced it to the private sector for a third of the cost and a fraction of the time they're able to get working, cutting edge prototypes. The way it works, and if I ever stop at some point in the presentation, forgive me, I have ADD, and when I see the chat sparks up, I'm like a cat seeing a laser. But the point is, the way it works with these agencies is they're looking for challenges. They're looking for problems that they have, and they're going to post out there for the private sector to be filled. Then they're going to see what's coming from the private sector, and that goes either in RFIs, request for information, tell us what's out there, and we want to build proposals that are realistic, or they're going to see the solicitations that are sent back to them. And this is critical for me to establish this. The persuasion happens through papers. The persuasion happens through the solicitations. There have been amazing pitches here, but there's a person sitting in Washington, D.C. going through 600 applications, and he has to decide, or she has to decide, how do I move taxpayer dollars to improve the situation of the agency? The persuasion and salesmanship happens through that pitch. So if you disregard or you don't invest in that pitch, the chances of winning get low. They'll invest in you to provide the solution. They'll see how you actually perform, and then they might even become follow-on funder, and then you'll have to find investor from the private sector to do match funding, or they might even become customers. Literally, clients of mine that are now working to work with the federal agency understand that they have a sales process that's going to take 2 years. Right now, they're starting to work with us on submitting for government R&D projects. So in 2 years down the road, when they go for further contracts, they already have this track record. I give this metaphor as I'm now trying to lose weight in these coming months, is you have to bring in a fitness coach, and a fitness coach won't get you to a six-pack within 2 months, but you know that a year after you started the process, this was an investment that was worth taking. The other side is seed money for private industry. It's literally to help startups boot and start from the ground. And that's because It's altruistic, but also for every dollar they put in, there's a projected $2.30 coming back. So let's look at Sibers and what are you getting from there. A phase one, it's a proof of concept stage, 50 to 250,000. Does the idea make sense? Can you show us a little bit of something, that a small experiment that shows that this is feasible? Or some agencies are going to say, here's 50,000. Let's face it, you're not going to retire from that 50,000. What this is for you is a little bit of pocket change, so you can go and find a partner to do the phase two. A phase two is a prototype stage, can be anywhere from 6 months to 24 months, and that is 750K to $1.6 million. And this is non-dilutive. This doesn't change the cap structure of the company. This does not change and does not bring intervention into the board. Another stat that is critical here, $3.5 billion have to be awarded annually. Not awarded annually, have to be awarded. And that means that if any company that is sitting here isn't applying to R&D funding, your competitors are applying. Repeat the process 2 and 3 years down the road. If you see the government as a client, that means that your competitor has already been working longer than you at it. This process takes time. You're not going to see $1 million fund within 2 months, but this is something that is worth at it. 5,500 awards are being given every year. So why aren't you there, if not now, in the near future? Out of that budget, SBIRs and those $3.5 billion are about 3% of the entire R&D budget. This is a broad agency announcement. A broad agency announcement is a completely different beast, and it can be 2 to 5 years long, from $100,000 to $65 million on awards that we at Eagle Point and our sister companies have seen throughout our lifetime. And they can be very broad, from very concept stage to we're looking for a working product within the next 120 days. So what can you factor in there? The salaries of R&D staff is critical, because if your engineers are going to spend 30% of their time on developing a product for the Department of Energy, 30% of their salaries could be factored in there. So this is something that is critical for the growth of the company. Subcontractors, instruments, materials, facilities, and up to 7% profit. And you'll see that these agencies will have R&D funding that might lead to a B2G contract. Axtech Search, AFWorks, Defense Innovation Unit, Army Applications Lab, Silicon Valley Innovation Program are all agencies and platforms that are there to start with R&D funding and then move into an actual client. So let's take a look at some of the agencies that are open now. They're very open topic, and I think that most companies that I've seen here are relevant. One of my jobs at Eagle Point is to be the first gatekeeper on speaking with companies. And in the first call that we have, we will see if there's a feasibility, if the technology, if we think we can find you a match in the federal government and in solicitations. So here's something for you to take a look at. We have the National Science Foundation, phase one proof of concept, 256,000, phase two, 750K. And the deadline ends in June 3rd, and we'll take about 3 to 5 months to give you an answer. For us to onboard you, it will take us about a week to 2 weeks to do the project pitch and then wait for more answers there. I know that everybody's attention span is kind of getting close to mine, so I'll be wrap up and I'll be finishing soon. But the National Science Foundation are great when it comes to solutions that don't have $50 million sales in the market yet. If this is a concept idea or if this is a groundbreaking idea and you're looking for somebody to fund it, they're a great way to start. The Army Applications Lab, they're awesome because as they're now waiting for funding, they are actually going to help you with introductions, and Deep Tech Showcase is actually one of the facilitators to help in some of those intros as well. So there is something, we have a joint program with Deep Tech, and we do kind of share companies that work with us. Anyway, this is something for us to discuss on a call, but there's a cooperation that we can do there. You just take a look at the amount of technologies they're looking to fund and help bring it into the military. Afterwards, we have AFWorks. You don't need to read this. What you do need to know is they're extremely open-minded bottom-up policy, which means A, we don't know what we don't know, and we're willing for the private sector to persuade us and tell us why does life suck if we don't use their technologies. So there's a lot of pain point hitting, a lot of telling people in the Air Force who do you want to partner with and who's going to be the person that is actually going to be using it. They don't want to fund a technology that is going to be sitting on the shelf. The way it works with them, phase 1 is a feasibility study. Phase 2 is the prototype, where you actually need to find a person that is going to pilot it with you. Then the phase 3, sole source government contract, and there's things, TACFI, StratFi was mentioned here earlier today, that they want to bring you non-dilutive funding. You have to find the private sector, and together they want to turn the prototype you did with them into a product. You see here the QR code. You can take out your phone right now if you're interested in speaking with me or Eagle Point Funding. Take out your phone, scan the QR code, and let's book a call. I'd be more than happy to evaluate and see if there's any work and help that we can give you. For them, it's either phase 1 to a phase 2 or something that is called a direct to phase 2. For the people in the audience who are not working with us at Eagle Point, if you have Air Force connections, if you've been a airman in the past, these types of finding the buddy that it wants to vouch for you and pilot with you is definitely something to consider. So I highly recommend scanning the QR code afterwards or asking for my details, and let's hop on a call real quick. Some of our winners and AI-powered facial recognition, drone-based data management, smart wearable fabrics, video live streaming, carbon nanotube technology. I'm not saying this to show off, even though, let's face it, I am. What I am doing is also here showing you that the variety of technologies that are available to be funded. It's not just AI, it's not just, I don't know, advanced materials. Just think, and you don't have to work with me. Do not exclude yourself from the process. Now, 3 criteria to win. You folks need to have innovative technology, and it has to be groundbreaking. This can't be a 10% improvement on an ice cream flavoring, or if you're an AI app that tells you the color of the cat that you need to buy, is stuff that is going to be very hard to fund and get you awarded. We've seen amazing companies and technologies that we weren't sure what was going to be the need. That's why I'm the first gatekeeper, and then there's another assessment many times. The R&D team has to be strong. I'm not necessarily looking for companies that have a million PhDs behind their name, but we need to know why this team can take tax funding, tax dollars, and then be able to actually deliver. And then commercially viable technology is something that we saw brought up today. It's okay if the plan changes, but how does this become a product at the end of it? And again, if you have further questions, if you want to dig further, if I annoyed you a little bit, take out your phone, scan the QR code, and let's have a meeting. Our key to winning federal funds, you need to know federal grants, you need to know the federal system, apply for multiple funding opportunities. You spoke here today with multiple investors. You're going to pitch to multiple clients. I highly recommend you apply to multiple agencies and solicitations. In the same way that even if you go on a date, if the date didn't work out, you don't lock yourself in the basement, you go out on another date until you succeed. And again, tell the story of your tech, why you're doing this, and why should the agency hear about you. Deep Tech Showcase is an amazing partner. We love working with you guys. You were amazing. So we highly recommend doing that as well. About us at Eagle Point, and I'm about to wrap up. We're a world leader in non-dilutive funding. We have FreeMind as a sister company, and we've pretty much been doing non-dilutive funding and R&D funding since 1999. What to expect on working with us? We do a kickoff call within 24 to 72 hours. There is time involvement from your side. We're not just plug and play. You know your tech and your business better than we do. We are here to become, hopefully, an inseparable client partner with you, but we need the onboarding. After the third solicitation, or after the second solicitation, it becomes very much streamlined, and there is a PES dispenser-like approach of let's get as many solicitations one after the other. This is a horrible picture of mine, which I absolutely hate, but it's old, so hopefully it's not as worse in the past. More than happy to answer all of your questions. If you want to see if you're eligible for R&D funding, if you want to see what's the relevancy for you, if you want to see if we want to work together and create a joint partnership with us and also Deep Tech, please take out your phones right now, scan the QR code, and let's hop on a quick meeting. I promise you I'm not as annoying on one-on-ones. So thank you, Deep Tech folks, very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And if there's any question in the time that we might have left, I'm happy to answer. But if not, thank you.